Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to take a look at a couple of different things, but we're going to start by taking a look at the constellation Boötes, or Boötes. It is a tricky one to pronounce, but it isn't a tricky one to find, especially at this time of the year. So we're taking a look over in the west, and the very bright star that we can see pretty much due west here at about 9:30 is Arcturus. You can make sure that this is Arcturus by finding the plough or the Big Dipper, so we can see that just over here, more in the northwest, and you follow the handle of the plough or Big Dipper, you follow that arc to Arcturus. I've mentioned the arc to Arcturus a couple of times before. Arcturus is the brightest star in the constellation Boötes or Boötes. It is a tricky one to pronounce. Oh, well, this is bringing up some of the names. It's bringing up Boötes as herdsman, which isn't really the name that I wanted. I wanted the Latin name. Here is the shape of the constellation. If we click on Arcturus here, you can see BOO for Boötes. The thing is that you're meant to pronounce these two O's separately, so it's Boötes rather than Boötes like a ghost. But it is a tricky one. Occasionally it's spelled with umlauts to make it a little bit easier to tell that you're supposed to pronounce the two O's separately. We can see here is the picture of the herdsman with a spear and a sickle. Arcturus is just down there at the bottom of the sort of a kilt or tunic that Boötes is wearing. The Boötes void is in Boötes. That's where it gets its name, or Boötes. The Boötes void is in the constellation, or in the direction of the constellation Boötes. If we take away the atmosphere, we'll see there's quite a few stars out in this direction, so we're not talking about a lack of stars. If we bring up our markers for extragalactic objects, or at least extrasolar objects, we'll see that there isn't too many out in this direction, but that's true for several different parts of the sky. Even if we get rid of the stars, so there's nothing else in the way, we can see that just over here, there's several galaxies. We can see several galaxies in the direction of the plough or the Big Dipper. Also, in the direction of Corona Borealis, there are some galaxies, a little further up here, but we're not seeing any in the direction of Boötes, this sort of empty gap. As we zoom in, we can see things appearing, but sort of sliding off to the side, because they're not really where we're looking at. They're a little bit further down, over in this direction. If we zoom in here, there we're starting to see a couple of those galaxies. These are the markers for galaxies, even though these galaxies aren't going to have any picture associated with them. If we zoom in here, you can see there's no picture associated, but there are galaxies out in those directions. There's not as many galaxies in a particular area of the sky, which is sort of behind the constellation, the herdsman, Boötes or Boötes, over this way. The Boötes void isn't really something that we get to see, and it isn't completely empty. It's a huge region of space with only about 60 galaxies in it, instead of, we can see there are some galaxies down in this direction. The Boötes void is behind another group of galaxies, the Shapley cluster. We're in the Virgo cluster of galaxies. Virgo would be just under the horizon here. We're in the Virgo supercluster. We're in the local group, which is part of the Virgo supercluster. So we can see the shape of Virgo there and Leo. The sun is in just the right place for these things to be completely blocked out. But here we can see a bunch of the galaxies in the Virgo cluster. Along with the Virgo cluster, we form the Virgo supercluster. The Milky Way, Andromeda, and the Triangulum Galaxy, us three galaxies. The galaxies often come in clumps. They kind of bundle together in space. So there are regions of the sky where we see lots of galaxies are sort of clumped together. But on the other hand, there are regions of the sky with very few galaxies, areas in space where there is a lack of galaxies, and there is a huge region out behind Boötes, which only has about 60 galaxies, when you'd expect to find a couple of thousand in a region of space so large. But it's not really something we can see. So in order to talk about it, in order to show it, if somebody needs a picture to go with an article about the Boötes void, they often end up using a thing called a Bok Globule. So what we're going to do, first off, we're going to head out into the countryside. Of course, that will let us see many more stars. and it will let us see various nebulae as well. If we start zooming in here on the Milky Way, there's already regions of space where there's plenty of stars and a dark thing blocking out the stars behind it. If we take a look for one in particular, hopefully we will have a picture of it. So it's here is LDN 57. There we go. It's also Barnard 68. I'm not sure if there will be an image. There is. There we go. And it looks like an empty hole in space in a region that's otherwise full of stars. It looks like there are these empty holes, but these are the opposite of empty. These dark nebulae are areas that are so filled with hydrogen gas and dust, these really dense clouds, they're so full of stuff that they block out the light of the stars behind them. Now, for some reason, it isn't highlighting the object when I want to click on it, but that's okay. We can always search it up. There is another group. Here we go. Thackeray's globules. Looks like they're under the horizon for us in Ireland at the moment, but that's okay. Here we go. So this is a pretty famous nebula, this big bright nebula here, but we can see within it there are these dark objects, these dark clouds. And in this case, it seems a little bit more obvious that these are dark objects floating against a background. But because of how dark and how empty these objects look, in the cases where they're directly in front of star fields, it looks like a void. It looks like an empty hole in space. But it is actually the opposite of empty. So if you see an image like this, a star field with a dark cloud in front of it, this, what looks like a void, isn't. This is a thing that's full of stuff, full of hydrogen, a dark cloud blocking out the light of the stars behind it. The Boötes void is a genuinely empty region of space, and it's in the constellation Boötes, so it's way up in this direction, very different to the Barnard 68, the LDN 57, which is down here in the constellation of Ophiuchus or Ophiuchus, the snake bearer. In fact, if we bring up the names, there we go, serpent bearer, and if we bring up the lines, there we go, we can see the shape of Ophiuchus and the serpent that he's carrying. So these are two very different things. The image that you often see associated with the Boötes void or Boötes supervoid is actually a completely different thing, and it is the opposite of a void. It's actually a part of space that's filled with dust and gas rather than being empty. And in the case of the Boötes void, it's empty of galaxies. And looking in this direction, we are still seeing galaxies. There's a bunch of galaxies out in this direction. But the Boötes void is sort of behind them. It's behind these galaxies that we can see sort of in front. Galaxies do group together in this way, and that's how we have clusters, as I mentioned, the supercluster, the Virgo supercluster. But of course, if there's going to be clusters in some places, there has to be emptiness in other places. Galaxies aren't evenly distributed through the universe. They tend to clump up together due to gravity. But you can't really see those things, those huge structures in space. We know that they exist, but we can't actually see the whole structure. These are huge structures that span across huge portions of the sky, huge portions of space, and we do have to look behind objects like these to see them. We have to look past the stars in our galaxy to see these clusters and superclusters of galaxies. It's very hard to get a picture, as I mentioned, so showing these Bok globules, these are known as Bok globules, these dark clouds that look like voids in space. They're a handy way of showing something, giving some sort of picture to a thing that we can't actually see. You know, even taking a look in here, we've got some more of these dark spots, these dark clouds of hydrogen. So that is really, that's the difference. That's the difference between a Bok globule and the Boötes void. The Boötes void is out there in the direction of Boötes, but of course we're not really going to see anything because it is a void, and it is a galactic void, a place where there is fewer galaxies, about 60 galaxies instead of the 2,000 we'd expect. Bok globules are something that we can see by taking a look into the Milky Way. Loads of nebulae have these Bok globules, these dark clouds of gas floating through them. So the next time you see an article that shows a field of stars with a dark shape and then tells you it's the Boötes void, you now know that that is not the case, that those are two very different things. A lovely picture of a Bok globule paired with an article about an area with not as many galaxies. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you, I hope that you don't see too many misleading articles, but if you do, I hope that you now recognize how they're misleading. And if you do, if you watched this video and enjoyed it, then please do like it. If you like this kind of content, then you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can also check out my website, queebeanscontent.ie, where you can find this information written down. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you back here next time.